I caught my husband with my son's fiancée, and I broke down when I found out who she really was. I walked into the room expecting to grab my phone. What I saw instead shattered me. My husband was with my son's fiancée, holding her like he used to hold me. I wanted to scream, but I froze. Later that night, I found something in her bag that made everything worse. She wasn't just cheating. She had a secret that connected back to me. This is the story of the moment that tore our family apart, and the truth I never expected to face. Sometimes the worst betrayals hide the most devastating truths. The rehearsal dinner was in 3 days. I had spent the entire morning finalizing seating arrangements for my son Jacob's wedding when I realized I'd left my phone in the guest house. We'd converted the old pool house into a cozy space for visitors, and Jacob's fiancée, Lily, had been staying there for the past week while her apartment was being renovated. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Jacob was at work. Lily was supposed to be at her dress fitting. My husband Daniel had said he was working from his home office. I walked across our backyard, admiring the early September sunshine, thinking about how beautiful the wedding would be. Jacob and Lily had been together for 2 years, and she seemed perfect for him. Sweet, intelligent, kind. At 28, she was closer to my age than to my mother-in-law's, and we'd bonded quickly over our shared love of vintage books and terrible reality TV. The guest house door was unlocked. I pushed it open quietly, not wanting to startle anyone if Lily had come back early. That's when I heard it, a woman's soft crying, and a man's voice, low and soothing. "Shh, it's okay. I'm here." "I've got you," my husband's voice. My feet moved silently across the hardwood floor. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, I saw them. Daniel was sitting on the edge of the bed, his arms wrapped around Lily. She was crying into his shoulder, her hands clutching his shirt, and he was holding her the way he used to hold me when we were young, tender, protective, intimate. The world tilted. My hand flew to my mouth to stop the gasp from escaping. My phone, the reason I'd come here, was forgotten. All I could see was my husband of 32 years embracing my son's fiancée in a way that looked like comfort, but felt like betrayal. "I don't know if I can do this," Lily sobbed. "What if he finds out? What if she finds out?" "We'll figure it out," Daniel murmured, stroking her hair. "I promise, but you can't tell them yet. Not before the wedding." My heart stopped. "Tell them what? What couldn't they tell us before the wedding?" I stepped back, my foot catching on the edge of the rug. The sound was soft, but in the silence of that terrible moment, it was like thunder. Daniel's head snapped up. His eyes met mine through the crack in the door, and I saw it. Guilt, fear, and something else. Something that looked almost like relief. "Catherine." His voice was hoarse. I turned and ran. I made it to the main house before the tears came. By the time I reached my bedroom, I was sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. 32 years. 32 years of marriage, of trust, of building a life together. We had weathered my mother's death, his father's bankruptcy, Jacob's rebellious teenage years. We had grown older together, softer around the edges, comfortable in our love, or so I thought. But Daniel had looked at Lily the way he used to look at me, and she had clung to him like he was her lifeline. How long had this been going on? 2 years, since she and Jacob started dating? Or was it more recent? A sudden passion that ignited when she moved into our guest house. And what did they need to tell us? That they were in love? That they were running away together? That my son's wedding was a sham? I heard footsteps on the stairs. Daniel appeared in the doorway, his face pale, his hands raised in surrender. "Catherine, please, let me explain." "Explain?" The word came out like a knife. "Explain how you're having an affair with our son's fiancée? Explain how you're destroying our family? It's not what you think. Then what is it?" I stood up, fury replacing devastation. Because what I think is that I just saw my husband holding another woman, a woman half his age, a woman our son is supposed to marry in 3 days, like she's the most precious thing in his world. So please, Daniel, tell me what I should think instead. He closed his eyes, pain etched across his features. When he opened them, they were filled with tears. "I'm not having an affair with Lily. I don't believe you. Catherine, I swear to God, there's nothing romantic between us. But there is something—" He took a shaky breath. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Fear replaced anger. What are you talking about? Not here. Not like this. He glanced toward the window. Lily needs to be part of this conversation. She wanted to tell you herself, but I convinced her to wait until after the wedding. I thought it would be easier that way. Tell me what? My voice was shrill now. Daniel, you're scaring me. I know. I'm scared too. He sat down heavily on the bed, his head in his hands. 33 years. I've been carrying this secret for 33 years, and I thought it would never matter. I thought she'd never find us. My blood turned to ice. She? Daniel looked up at me, and in his eyes I saw the truth before he spoke it. Lily is yours, Catherine. She's your daughter. The world stopped. I heard the words, but they made no sense. They were sounds without meaning, a language I didn't speak. That's impossible, I whispered. We don't have a daughter. We have Jacob. Just Jacob. You had a daughter, Daniel said quietly. Before we met. Before I knew you. The room swayed. I gripped the edge of the dresser to keep from falling. I never had another child. I would know if I... And then it hit me. A memory I had buried so deep I'd almost convinced myself it never happened. The summer I turned 19. The boy I thought I loved. Michael Sullivan, with his easy smile and empty promises. The missed period. The test. The terror. The clinic where I'd gone alone, crying. Certain I was making the only choice I could make at 19 with no money, no support, no future. Except I hadn't gone through with it. At the last moment, sitting in that waiting room, I'd panicked. Run. Driven home in a daze and told myself I'd figure it out, that I'd find another way. But the next day, I'd woken up bleeding, cramping, devastated and relieved in equal measure. A miscarriage, the emergency room doctor had said. Early, but complete. Nothing to worry about. These things happen. No, I shook my head violently. No, I lost that baby. I miscarried. The doctors told me. The doctors were wrong, Daniel said gently. Or they lied. I don't know which. But Lily is real, Catherine. And she's yours. How? The word came out broken. How could she be mine? I never gave birth. I never held a baby. I never... Sit down, Daniel said. Please. Let me explain everything. I sat, not because I wanted to, but because my legs wouldn't hold me anymore. 3 months ago, Daniel began, Lily came to me. She was confused, upset. She'd been going through her adoptive mother's things after she passed away last year and found her adoption papers. They listed her birth mother's name as Catherine Ann Morrison, your maiden name. I couldn't breathe. She hired a private investigator, found out you'd married me, changed your name to Catherine Morrison Hayes, found out we lived here, that we had a son. She couldn't believe it when she started dating Jacob and realized he was your son, her half-brother. Oh, God! The nausea hit me like a wave. They can't. Jacob and Lily can't. They're not related, Daniel said quickly. Jacob isn't biologically mine. You know that. I did know that. Jacob was from my first marriage. A brief, disastrous union to a man I'd divorced when Jacob was 2. Daniel had adopted him when we married, been more of a father to him than his biological one ever was. But that didn't change the horror of what I was hearing. Why didn't she tell me? I whispered. Why come to you instead of me? Because she was scared, Daniel said. She didn't know how you'd react. She didn't know if you'd even remember giving birth to her, or if you'd want anything to do with her. She came to me first, hoping I could help her figure out how to approach you. And you decided to keep it a secret? Anger flared again. You decided to let our son date his fiancée, my daughter, without telling any of us the truth? I was trying to protect you. Daniel's voice rose. Lily wanted to call off the engagement immediately, but I convinced her to wait. I thought if I could figure out what really happened, if I could understand how you didn't know you'd given birth, then I could break it to you gently. I hired my own investigator. I've been looking into it for months. And what did you find? Daniel pulled out his phone, opened a file, and handed it to me. It was a hospital record from 33 years ago. St. Mary's Medical Center. Emergency admission for Catherine Ann Morrison, age 19. Heavy bleeding, unconscious. Emergency cesarean section performed. Live birth, female infant, 4 lbs 3 Oz. Mother placed under sedation. Child placed for immediate adoption per father's request. The phone slipped from my hands. Father's request? I looked at Daniel, horror dawning. Michael? Michael Sullivan gave away my baby while I was unconscious? It appears so, Daniel said quietly. The investigator tracked him down last week. He's living in Florida now, married with 3 kids. When confronted, he admitted everything. Said you'd told him you wanted an abortion, but you'd backed out. When you collapsed from the hemorrhaging, he saw his chance. Told the hospital you'd agreed to adoption, signed the papers himself, forged your signature. By the time you woke up, the baby was gone. They told you you'd miscarried, because that's what he paid them to tell you. I couldn't speak, couldn't think, couldn't process the magnitude of what had been stolen from me. My daughter. I'd had a daughter, and she'd been taken from me before I even knew she existed. Where is she? I finally whispered. Where's Lily? Still in the guest house, waiting. She's terrified, Catherine. She thinks you'll hate her for this. Hate her? I stood up, tears streaming down my face. She's my daughter who I mourned without even knowing why. My daughter who found her way back to me after 33 years. How could I possibly hate her? I ran. Chapter 2. The Truth Revealed. I burst into the guest house without knocking. Lily was sitting on the couch, her face red and swollen from crying. When she saw me, she stood up quickly, fear and hope warring in her expression. And for the first time, I really looked at her. The dark, curly hair. My hair when I was younger. The green eyes. My mother's eyes. The small birthmark on her left wrist. The same one I had on my right. How had I not seen it before? I'm sorry, Lily said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. I fell in love with Jacob before I knew who he was, before I knew who you were. And then when I found out, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to tell you, but I was scared. And Daniel said to wait, and I crossed the room and pulled her into my arms. She froze for a moment, then collapsed against me, sobbing. And I held my daughter, for the first time in 33 years. It's not your fault, I whispered into her hair. None of this is your fault. But I'm ruining everything, she cried. Jacob's your son and I love him, but I can't marry him now. Not when you're my mother. It would be too weird, too complicated. And he's going to hate me for calling off the wedding. Everyone's going to hate me. No one's going to hate you. I pulled back to look at her tear-stained face. My face, 30 years younger. This is complicated, yes, but it's not your fault, and it's not mine. The only person at fault is the man who stole you from me. My birth father, Lily said bitterly. Michael Sullivan. Daniel told me what he did. Yes. Fresh rage burned through me at the thought of Michael, the boy I'd once thought I loved, betraying me so completely. What he did was unforgivable. But Lily, you need to understand something. I didn't give you up. I didn't choose adoption. You were taken from me. If I had known for even 1 second that you were alive, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you. Really? Her voice was so small, so hopeful. Really? I cupped her face in my hands. I mourned you, sweetheart. For years, I felt this inexplicable grief every time I saw a little girl with dark curly hair. I thought it was because of the miscarriage, because of the baby I lost. But it wasn't a miscarriage, was it? It was you. Some part of me knew you were out there, and I grieved for you without even understanding why. Lily's face crumpled, and she pulled me close again. We stood there, 2 women who'd been robbed of 33 years together, holding each other like we could somehow make up for lost time. When we finally pulled apart, I noticed something on the coffee table. A leather bag, partially open, with papers spilling out. Is that what I think it is? I asked. Lily nodded, wiping her eyes. My adoption file, medical records, everything Daniel's investigator found. I was going to show it to you after the wedding, try to explain everything. But then you walked in and saw. She blushed. It wasn't what it looked like. I was having a panic attack. Daniel was just trying to calm me down. I know, I said. He explained. I'm sorry I jumped to conclusions. Can you blame yourself? Lily gave a watery laugh. It must have looked terrible. It did, I admitted. But we'll deal with that later. Right now, I need to see those papers. I need to understand exactly what happened. We sat down together, and Lily walked me through everything. The adoption records that showed she'd been placed with a family in Boston, the medical records that proved I'd given birth, that proved the hospital had lied to me, the investigator's report on Michael Sullivan, including a recorded conversation where he admitted to everything. "I want to press charges," I said when I'd read it all. What he did, forging my signature, paying off hospital staff, stealing my child, that's kidnapping. That's fraud. It's beyond the statute of limitations, Lily said quietly. Daniel's lawyer already checked. It happened too long ago. Legally, there's nothing we can do to him. I wanted to scream. Wanted to fly to Florida and make Michael Sullivan pay for what he'd taken from both of us. But Lily was right. Legally, we were powerless. "What about your adoptive family?" I asked. "Were they good to you?" Lily's expression softened. "They were wonderful. My mom, Helen, was the kindest person I've ever known. She couldn't have children of her own, and she loved me like I was her miracle. She passed away last year from cancer. That's when I found the adoption papers in her safe. I think she always wanted me to know the truth, but she didn't know how to tell me." "And your adoptive father?" "He died when I was 10. Heart attack." Lily smiled sadly. "He was great too. I had a really happy childhood, Catherine. They loved me so much. I don't want you to think I was neglected or unhappy. I'm glad," I said, and I meant it. "I'm glad you were loved. I'm glad you had a good life, even if it wasn't the life we should have had together." We sat in silence for a moment, processing everything. Then Lily said the thing we'd both been avoiding. "I have to tell Jacob." My son came home at 6 p.m., happy and oblivious. He kissed my cheek, asked how the wedding planning was going, mentioned he was taking Lily to dinner. "Actually," I said, my heart breaking, "we need to talk. All of us. Now." Jacob's smile faded. "Mom? What's wrong? Is someone sick?" "No one's sick." I looked at Daniel, who'd been sitting silently in the living room since the confrontation. "But there's something we need to tell you. Something that's going to change everything." We gathered in the living room. Me, Daniel, Jacob, and Lily. My son sat on the couch, looking between all of us with growing alarm. "You're freaking me out," he said. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Lily beat me to it. "Jacob, I can't marry you." The color drained from his face. "What? Why? Did I do something wrong?" "No." Lily's voice broke. "You did nothing wrong. You're perfect. You're everything I've ever wanted. But I can't marry you because—" She looked at me, tears streaming down her face. "Because Catherine is my biological mother." Jacob stared at her, then at me, then back at her. "That's not funny," he said slowly. "It's not a joke," I said gently. "Jacob, 33 years ago I had a daughter. I didn't know about her. I thought I'd miscarried. But I didn't. She was taken from me without my knowledge, put up for adoption, and that baby grew up to be Lily." My son's face went through a series of expressions. Confusion, disbelief, horror, understanding. "So she's my sister?" "Half-sister," Lily said quickly. "We don't share a father, but yes, Catherine is my mother, which makes her your mother, which makes us family," Jacob finished. He sat back, running his hands through his hair. "Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm so sorry," Lily sobbed. "I love you so much, Jacob. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, but I can't marry you now. I can't be your wife when I'm your sister. It would be wrong." "But you didn't know," Jacob said, his voice cracking. "When we met, when we fell in love, you didn't know we were related. That's not your fault." "It doesn't matter. I know now. We both know now. And we can't pretend we don't." Lily pulled the engagement ring off her finger with shaking hands. "I'm so sorry, Jacob. You deserved better than this. You deserved a normal engagement, a beautiful wedding, a wife who wasn't secretly your sister." Jacob took the ring slowly, staring at it like he didn't recognize it. Then he did something that broke my heart and made me proud at the same time. He stood up, walked over to Lily, and pulled her into a hug. "I love you," he said fiercely. "Not as a fiancé anymore, I guess, but I love you. And I'm glad you're part of our family, even if it's not the way we planned." Lily collapsed against him, crying harder. And I watched my son, my beautiful, compassionate son, comfort the woman he loved as she broke his heart. Daniel's hand found mine, and we held on to each other, watching our family reshape itself into something we'd never imagined. Chapter 3. The family we became 3 months later. The wedding venue we'd booked was non-refundable, so we used it anyway. But instead of a wedding, we threw a party. A celebration of family, of truth, of finding each other after 33 years of separation. Lily moved out of the guest house and into our home, into the room we set up for her next to Jacob's old bedroom. We spent hours talking, catching up on a lifetime of missed moments. I learned about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. She learned about me, about the young woman I'd been when I unknowingly carried her, about the life she could have had. Jacob struggled. I won't pretend he didn't. Losing the woman he loved, even for the right reasons, devastated him. He moved back home for a while, needing the support of family as he processed his grief. But slowly, something beautiful emerged. Jacob and Lily rebuilt their relationship, transforming romantic love into something equally powerful, deep, unconditional sibling love. They became best friends in a way that might not have been possible if they'd married. And watching them together, my son and my daughter, filled a hole in my heart I hadn't known existed. Daniel and I went to couples therapy. The secret he'd kept, even with good intentions, had damaged our trust, but we worked through it. He apologized. I forgave. And slowly, we found our way back to each other. As for Michael Sullivan, I did eventually confront him. Not legally. That door was closed. But I flew to Florida, showed up at his door, and looked him in the eye as I told him exactly what his betrayal had cost me. Cost us. Cost Lily. He cried, apologized, said he'd been young and stupid and scared. I told him I didn't forgive him, that I never would, but that I wouldn't let his actions poison the rest of my life. And then I walked away, leaving him with his guilt. 1 year later, I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Lily came downstairs, followed by Jacob. They were arguing about something silly, a TV show maybe, or whose turn it was to take out the trash. Normal sibling stuff. Daniel kissed my cheek as he poured coffee. "Morning, beautiful." "Morning," I said, smiling at the scene before me. My husband, my son, my daughter, my family. It wasn't the family I'd planned for. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I was 19 and pregnant and terrified. It wasn't the future I'd dreamed of when I walked in on Daniel and Lily and thought my world was ending. But it was real. It was ours. And it was more than enough. "Mom," Lily said, pulling me from my thoughts. "You okay?" I looked at her. This woman who'd been stolen from me, who'd found her way back against all odds, who'd given up her own happiness to preserve the integrity of our family. "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it. Later that day, Lily and I were alone in the garden, planting flowers for spring. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Anything. Do you ever wish things had been different? That I'd never found you, never dated Jacob? That you could have just kept living your life without all this complication?" I set down my trowel and took her hand. "No," I said firmly. "Never. Because yes, this has been complicated. Yes, it's been painful. Yes, Jacob got hurt, and you lost the future you'd planned. But Lily, I spent 33 years with a hole in my heart that I couldn't explain. I grieved for you without knowing why. And now you're here. You're real. You're mine. No matter how messy or complicated it is, I would never trade that. Even though it means you'll never have grandchildren from Jacob and me?" she asked with a sad smile. I laughed. "Sweetheart, you're 29 and Jacob's 31. You'll both find love again. You'll both have children, and I'll be grandmother to all of them. Yours and his. Promise?" "Promise." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat there in the garden, my daughter and I, making up for lost time one moment at a time. Epilogue. 2 years later, Jacob did find love again, with Sarah, a teacher he met at a friend's party. They got married in a small ceremony, and I walked my son down the aisle, crying happy tears. Lily found love too, with Amanda, a software engineer who loved her completely and without complication. When they got engaged, Lily asked me to help plan the wedding. "But this time," she said with a grin, "maybe we actually get to have the ceremony." At Lily's wedding, I gave a speech. I talked about family, how it's not always what we plan, but what we build, how the people we love aren't always the ones we expect, How sometimes the greatest blessings come from the most painful betrayals. I looked at Daniel, at Jacob and Sarah, at Lily and Amanda, at the family we'd become. Messy, complicated, perfect. 2 years ago, I said, I walked into a room and saw something that I thought was destroying my family. But it wasn't destruction. It was revelation. It was truth. It was my daughter coming home to me after 33 years. And yes, it changed everything. But change isn't always bad. Sometimes it's exactly what we need. I raised my glass. To Lily and Amanda. To love that persists. To family that endures. To truth, even when it's painful. And to second chances, because everyone deserves them. As we toasted, Lily caught my eye across the room. She mouthed 2 words, "Thank you," and I mouthed back, "I love you," because at the end of the day, that was what mattered. Not the pain of the past, not the complications of the present, just love. Messy, imperfect, unconditional love. I'd lost my daughter 33 years ago, but I'd found her again. And this time, nothing would ever take her from me. The end. Final summary for description. I walked in expecting to find my phone. Instead, I found my husband holding my son's fiancée in his arms. My world shattered until I discovered the truth. She wasn't his mistress. She was my daughter, stolen from me 33 years ago and raised by strangers. The man I'd loved when I was 19 had betrayed me in the cruelest way possible, and now my daughter had unknowingly fallen in love with her own brother. This is the story of a secret that destroyed one future, but built an even stronger family. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. True story, family, secrets, adoption, betrayal, reunion, second chances, love, truth, healing,